This is a HeadGum podcast.
Welcome to our new podcast, Misty Nights Uninformed Afro. The new podcast series will dive into the origin stories, character development, and story arcs of our favorite Black superheroines and characters in comics. These are the obscure stories you don't always hear about, and we share commentary on some of our favorite moments in comics. We're going into deep discussions about Storm, Misty Knight, Monica Rambeau, Vixen, Amanda Waller, Riri Williams, Lunella Lafayette, and the Dora Milaje. The series has two hosts, founder and managing editor of BlackGirlNerds.com and host of the BGN podcast, yours truly, Jamie Broadnax. And Stephanie Williams, host of The Lemonade Show. Each episode will reference comic book issues, dates, and creators. That way you can go back and check out the stories for yourself. By the end of the series, you will become a certified expert in the fictional world of Black superheroines. Please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. We'd love to hear what you think about the show. See you soon.
Hey, this is Steph Farwell. Join me bi-weekly at The Lemonade for all things nerdy and geeky, giving you all the sweet and sour notes from the nerd world, as well as my own special commentary to make this blended lemonade just right. Follow The Lemonade at Audio Boom, SoundCloud, Podbean, at the Points of Interest Network, and I'll see you guys soon.
Hey, I'm Nick.
And I'm Victor.
And this is Megashine. Megashine is a queer, people of color weekly podcast, and we talk about anything from drag to comics to video games to
boys
and anything else in between. So if you want to listen to us, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, and you can follow us on Megashine Pod and Megashine on Twitter.
That's right. So follow us, talk to us. We'll be here.
And we out.
Shannon, CG, Lauren, and Mel form the Nerds of Prey. A group of ladies bonded by comics, gaming, film, television, and fandom culture. Hang out with them bi-weekly as they dig into the very things that make them loud and proud nerds. Available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play. Also, check out their Patreon at patreon.com/Nerds of Prey.
Universal FanCon is a brand new convention coming to the Baltimore Convention Center in April of 2018. FanCon will be a round-the-clock event featuring comics, cosplay, gaming, celebrity guests, music, and more with a focus on diversity and inclusion. Get your tickets now at universalfancon.com because geek is universal.
This is Debbie Bell, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Hey, this is Rick Fox from Greenleaf, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerd podcast.
All right, you know what it is, what it was, what it will be. It's your main man, Jason Mitchell, and you are rocking with Black Girl Nerds.
Hey, what up, y'all? This is Jenny Ellis from HBO's Insecure, and you are listening to the Black Girl Nerd podcast.
This is Lisa Joyce from Insecure, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerd podcast.
My name is Felicia D. Henderson. I'm the co-creator of BET's The Quad, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Yeah, this is Louis Tan from Marvel's Iron Fist. This is Black Girl Nerds. You guys are amazing. I love you guys to death. Check out the podcast. Check out the show. Let's get busy.
Hello, this is Jordan Peele, the director of Get Out, and you are listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast. Hello, this is the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, and you are listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Pennington, integrative physician, acupuncturist, meditation teacher, and sex educator. And guess what? I'm the author of The Orgasm Prescription for Women, 21 Days to Heighten Pleasure, Deeper Intimacy, and Orgasmic bliss. Keep listening.
Five, 6, 7, 8. Holla boys and girls, it's the BGN. Coming from the Marvel world to the DC friends. All the way from Hollywood to the PCN. She defends everyone from sleazy men. Won't apologize for spitting Shonda rhymes. The space that we make is never colonized. Talking games and movies and actors. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Yeah, better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Ha. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 116 of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. My name is Jamie, and I am your host. This episode is titled Bilquis the Goddess and the State of Comedy. 2 segments. In our first segment, we invite actress Yetide Badaki, who plays Bilquis on the hit Starz show American Gods. That's right. She talks to us about her role playing one of the most controversial gods on this show, and also she geeks out with us a little bit. It's a fun interview featuring myself, Jacqueline, and Kyndal. In our second segment, we have a discussion with comedian John Minus. John Minus has made his second appearance here on the Black Girl Nerds podcast, and he's a member of the comedy troupe Decepticomics. And in this discussion, we talk about very controversial issues in comedy. What's offensive to say? What's not offensive to say? Where are the lines crossed when it comes to making people laugh? So that's our show. 2 fantastic segments. If you haven't done so already, please follow us on Twitter at BGN Podcast, and you can always use the hashtag BGN Podcast on Twitter to let folks know about the show and to also comment about your feelings towards this very episode or previous episodes that we've done. So sit back, relax, and have fun with this one. It's BGN 116, Bilquis the Goddess and the State of Comedy. Enjoy. Yetide Badaki is an actress known for playing Bilquis on American Gods. She's a graduate of McGill University with a major in English literature, theater, and a minor in environmental science. Yetide has also a Master of Fine Arts in Theater from Illinois State University. She's appeared on such shows as Lost, Criminal Minds, Masters of Sex, and NCIS New Orleans. You can currently find her playing the role of Bilquis in the hit TV series American Gods, which is based on the book by Neil Gaiman of the same name. Thank you so much for tuning into this segment of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. My name is Jamie. I am your host. We live tweet this show every week, y'all. It's under the hashtag GODS, GAWDS. American Gods is the fantastic, epic series by Neil Gaiman, and it is now on Starz. And we are very excited to have on our show none other than we have the amazing actress Yetide Badaki. Thank you so much for coming on the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I think you know I'm a big fan of y'all, so this is exciting for me.
Well, listen, we are a big fan of yours, and I'm really excited to just talk to you and geek out about all things American Gods and also learn a little bit more about you. So let's start off with Bilquis, because this character, man, what an intense opening in the pilot of American Gods. You play the goddess Bilquis, and I kind of want to know the origin story behind you getting the role. So can you tell us first what led you to become an actor, and kind of walk us through a little bit about the process of how you got the role?
Well, first off, I love that you use the term origin story because I do the same thing. I think it points out to my nerd. But yeah, the origin story for Bilquis, or the path to me becoming an actor, started all the way back in Nigeria around the fire with my elders telling stories. And I just remembered wanting to be a part of that magic from a very early age. And then I auditioned for my first school play, Peter Pan, by the way, one of the Lost Boys. And as soon as, and as soon as I got up on that stage, there was that recognition of Stories by the Fire, and I was hooked. And fast forward how many years, not knowing how I'm going to continue to do this, but always having a love for it, and trying to do the, the responsible child thing, and first being a major in environmental science. Yes, because it was not necessarily considered, what's the word, the most respectable to be an actor. And, but then I just remember waking up one day and going, gosh, if I'm depressed about the idea of class, what is the rest of my life going to be? And performance acting, storytelling has always been like oxygen to me, like air. I just have to breathe. And so I was sneaking in little plays. I was sneaking in some theater classes because on the transcript it showed up as English literature. And but then finally at that point I said, no, I need to do this. So I did. I got into grad school at Illinois State. I got for an MFA in theater. Went to Chicago right after and did some plays there. I was very lucky to get that. And then I did the Actors Mecca to LA. And of course, all this time, for anyone I think who is a fan of stories, and especially Stories by the Fire and magic, of course I was hooked on every sci-fi fantasy book that I could find. Always reading. Always reading. And so I was a big fan of Neil Gaiman, and read the story when it first came out. And it wasn't until 15 years later where I got the audition. And that's it. That was a long story.
That was a fantastic origin story, though. I mean, and that's amazing that you read the book before getting the role, because usually it's the other way around when actors are cast in these movie or TV adaptations. They do their research after the fact. But that's awesome that you were a fan and knew the material.
It was great because then I had years of ideas marinating. Not knowing that I'd ever get to use it, but that it was in my subconscious. So I think it was very helpful in the actual process.
That's fantastic. We here are like super uber fans of American Gods, and the fandom is very strong. Folks are very passionate about their feelings towards this property, whether it's the book fans or the TV fans or both. They have very distinct feelings towards the characters and the storylines. So do you find yourself being a fan of this property as well? I mean, you pretty much said that in your origin story. You read it when it first came out. Or do you kind of just detach yourself from this completely so that way you can kind of focus on the role?
I think it's interesting that I get to play in a sandbox with a whole bunch of fun creatives who are just fans. I mean, Brian Fuller and Michael Green, who in their own right are just some of the most amazing storytellers, they will continuously tell you that they are writing fan fiction. And I'm a huge fan too. I'd like to say I was cool and able to detach myself. I'm not that cool. I love the stories that we get to tell. Now, when I'm on set and we're playing with the character, yes, something else takes over. And Bilquis will do her thing when she appears. However, as soon as I hear cut, I'm geeking out over, oh my goodness, we just did that. And oh my goodness, what were we just about to do? I would say I'm one of the biggest fans. And I think fans have probably seen, I posted the other day because, Neil Gaiman gave me this special edition signed. And I just about burst into tears. It was one of the most amazing moments of my life.
I would have burst into tears too.
Yeah, I would have been bragging on Instagram immediately, like, look at what I got. Like, hey.
I'm not gonna lie, I did.
Right. Like do a close up on the signature. Like, look, guys.
Yes, I did all of the above.
Oh, that's so great. Well, this is Kyndal. And I wanted to ask you, when you first read the book back in 2001, so this is before social media, before Twitter and Snapchat, and before you got to brag on Instagram about your signed copy. When you first read the book, did it have any effect on your perception of mythology and religion and technology? I mean, the story that he wrote, even though it was written in 2001, is very relevant today. So I was just curious to see if when you first read it back then, if it had any effect on those perceptions.
Oh, it absolutely did. Because one of the brilliant things that Neil Gaiman did was to write something that talked about the peddling of belief and how we all come towards belief, how we deal with it, and what it does to us. I think that is something that will always be prevalent. That is something that resonated immediately. I can go off into tangents about, belief. And I spent so much time in Neil Gaiman's world and sent myself, as a reminder of following my dreams, one of his quotes at the end of, 2015? December of 2015. I still have that quote from Facebook that I sent to myself. And come February of 2016, I'm auditioning for a role in a show that he has. So this idea of belief is something that has constantly resonated. And it was also something that when I read at the time, that helped to solidify that I was not the only one that thought that way. There's something really great about reading a wonderful writer's words and seeing a part of yourself in there. And as far as belief, that was also a time where I was learning about sensuality and all of that. And I know that immediately that even seeing Bilquis and not knowing exactly what I felt about that, but that it informed something that kind of tickled the back of my head, tickled the back of my brain, and that stayed there for a long time. Now it's really interesting that now, yes, the themes that have been interesting and resonated, like the immigration story. I mean, most people know only recently an American citizen. So that was another, recognition moment. Even though it resonated then, I think more so now, it's in a whole new place. So yeah, his work definitely did affect me. It affected me on many levels, on the immigration level, on the finding myself as a woman, exploring sensuality at that moment, and just as a human being, struggling with the ideas of belief, whether in self or of another way of being. I hope I answered that. I hope I didn't ramble through that for you.
No, you did. That was great. That was and rambling is fine.
Okay, good.
Perfectly fine. And I also wanted to ask you, it seems to me that Bilquis is ultimately searching for connection, which is just something beyond worship. And as a proud Black nerd, I remember you said this at South by Southwest, that you enjoy researching and how much you loved researching the character. So I wanted to know, in your preparation, your research for this role, in what way did you connect to Bilquis?
So I think you hit it right on the head, that search that Bilquis has for real connection. It's both her strength, her greatest strength, and her biggest weakness. In that, when she finds it, it fulfills her in so many ways. And that when she doesn't, you can see that she is even visibly deteriorated. I think that was immediately my in, just as Yetide approaching this role. And I say that because I think that's, for a lot of us, something that we're trying to figure out now. We have so many more devices. We have so many more platforms. It is being sold to us as connection. However, how many times have you, well, I won't say you,
the general you.
Yeah, the general you. You've spent hours with people on Facebook or Instagram, etc. And then you're back in your own space and not feeling that much more connected to anybody. Like there was a genuine, full, nutritious interaction. And I think it's starting to bleed into the way we date and the way we have general relationships. And that was, as far as research, yes, I was then looking into different myths, into different, ideas of interconnectedness. And I was finding a lot more articles, New York Times, Washington Post, talking about how our generation is having less intimacy in general. How we're having a harder time connecting in this super connected world. And I can definitely say I identify with that. And I actually like the idea that I get to play with that and that we get to ask that question about how connected are we? Because I think this is a question that is rattling around in many people's minds, but not everyone is quite able to voice it yet. And there's something about seeing it on the screen and going, yes. I mean, it's been wonderful, the reaction when people talk about the museum scene and they talk about, all of these different, yes, sensual moments, but people are telling me that they're feeling something, that it resonates to them, and that they recognize something. I would hope that then starts a conversation where people maybe connect a little bit more.
Yeah. So this is Jacqueline, and I was just going to say, from the pilot, because you mentioned about, internet dating and dating in general, I knew that even if I hadn't read the book, I knew that you were a god because you were a Black woman that got somebody to respond to her from online dating, and that was a miracle, because I don't know if you've read the statistics. I was like, yeah, that's a deity right there. Let's talk about it.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, you need to tune in. We're going to do a dating Black Girl Nerd podcast soon. I think you'll enjoy the fun of that one. But speaking of the pilot, everybody talks about that scene. And I was really going to ask you about, because we watched it at South by, and all three of us were sitting there, and we immediately had this huge impression of what this was. Like, it just made the show instantly set apart. Did you feel that immediately what this could, or did you feel immediately what it did mean maybe for women, especially like colorism with Black women and sexuality on television? Like, did you have that moment, or when did you have that moment the first time, I should say?
I mean, I can tell you that there were two ways when I initially read that script. I saw that there were two ways that it could go. And for me, sorry, I'll pause for a minute. For me, there was a great fear and a great hope. The great fear was people would see me on there. Yes, there's no clothes. And immediately put it in a box and immediately make aspersions about myself and about the show and about a whole lot of things. The great hope was I read that, yes, as a Black woman, and I felt empowered. I felt it showed a part of me that I say, yes, this is a part of who I am as an individual. This actually does exist for me. It was a hope that people would see, not meaning to use a pun, but all the different colors of what my experience is. And in that, see that in everyone else. And the moment when, and yes, part of the reason was, yes, I read that book by Neil Gaiman and it resonated. Then I read that script that Michael and Brian had put together and they're expert storytellers, so it resonated. And the team that I looked at when, considering the role or looking to be a part of the role was exceptional. And every step of the way, even on set, even with costumes, even with makeup, all of them,
Hello?
Certainly each level of that was a confirmation that we could do something incredibly beautiful here. And everyone had that same the same vision of it being something incredibly transcendent, incredibly beautiful, and that would resonate with so many. But it wasn't until South by Southwest that it got a real feeling of what the general public would see, or the way in which they may react. There were hopes that we all had. There were things that we wanted to bring across, but it was not until that we saw, okay, people are getting this. People understand that there's so much more that we want to talk about here and so much more that we are representing here.
Yeah, it was great. I'm not gonna lie. Me and Jamie walked out and we're just like, I don't think I've ever seen that, and it's just the most amazing moment that I've ever seen with a Black woman owning her sexuality on screen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was huge. That was the first thing we said. But this is not. I mean, this may be the biggest profile thing you've done, but you've been acting for a while, and I know a show like American Gods helps to change this, what we call the visual landscape about TV and diversity. But I'm sure in your years as a working actress in Hollywood, which I don't think a lot of people understand, that means someone like, you're not owning your TV show. You're doing, you're just working. You're trying to maintain your lifestyle as a working actor. Character actor, I guess, would be the easiest way to say it. Can you talk about maybe some of the things that you had to deal with being a Black working actress that people don't realize, and maybe appreciate how great this moment is now?
When I was leaving grad school, or even actually starting it, I remember Jack McLaughlin Gray was the one that recommended me for that program, because they only chose 6 people for 2 years. So 6 people in all in that MFA class. And they did not bring in anybody new for that whole 2-year program. And he said to me, Yetide, you're going to have to work twice as hard. And you're going to run into so many things. And just know that that's going to be a reality. And the interesting thing is that I think that was maybe the greatest gift he ever gave me, because it never occurred to me that it would be easy. And I'd seen people almost have a tougher time out of school on so many levels, from undergrad or high school or whichever, when maybe there was the assumption that things were always going to be easy. However, yet another teacher said, make the work undeniable. Always go in and just be undeniable. And even if you don't get that one because of whatever reason, people will still be talking about, remember that audition? Remember that thing? And there were moments, I remember even getting an early internet a web series. And it had been written as something else. But they thankfully brought me in, and I did my work. And then they asked me where I was from at the end of the audition. And then I get the script back, I get a contract, and the character had now been changed. So, yeah, it's not always easy. I'm not saying it's a picnic. However, and I think this is where belief comes back in, of just going, well, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to. And I'm going to give it my all at every moment. And I know I'm going to leave that room saying, well, I did everything that I possibly could. Now, okay, if they're not picking up on this or whichever, that's where they are. But many times in the past, and I've been lucky. Let me be clear about that too. I know some people don't like the word luck in there. Yes, I work my tail off. However, there are these moments where something just seemed to align as well. But people know me. I always would. I mean, I'd be that person in that theater production where there's more people in the cast than the audience. And strangely enough, there would have been maybe 2 people in the audience, but that one person was someone that happened to work at some network. You know what I mean? So it was those 2 bits of advice that I just needed to constantly work in my craft. And secondly, be undeniable. And I mean, when I look at people like Viola Davis.
Yes, Lord.
Yes, right. Just take a minute.
Exactly. Just take a moment to absorb after you had said her name.
I mean, it's like Oprah now. Like you have to you have to put some respect on the name. You say Oprah, you need to be like, amen. You say Viola.
Yes.
Take a minute.
So continue.
And that is another person too, right? That just, okay. I mean, this is one of my favorite quotes. What other people think of you is none of your business. And I can't remember who said that, but it made such a difference to me. It's like, I'm just going to keep going. That's it. I'm just going to keep on going. And you see, yes, Oprah is a great example. And you see people like Viola as well. And they were just undeniable. So, yeah, I think that answered the question.
No, it did. It really did. And honestly, I just love hearing anybody speak passionately about women in film, Black women in film. Like, I could just listen to you talk about it all day, and you don't have to answer my questions. So I appreciate you. You've been trying.
Yeah, we love your answers. And like at South by Southwest, all of us on this call, we had the chance to experience this with you in the theater, watching the show, and also in the press line. And a lot of the cast, you guys seem like you just genuinely love each other's company. Mm-hmm. And I get a sense that, it's a fun place to be. So I want to know, what is the atmosphere like on the set? I can only imagine with like eccentric folks like Brian Fuller and Michael Green that's running things, that it's a bit fun, crazy. But what's the average day on the set like?
This is, who was it that said this the other day? Orlando. Gotta love that man.
Yes.
And he, we had just come from something. And it was, that's funny because it was my car hadn't shown up. And Orlando had been saying, hey, Yetide, are you okay? Do you have your thing? He's like, okay, hop in my car. This is what this group does. This group is family. Oh. And he was saying goodnight, and he said, this doesn't happen. And, Orlando's been working in this town for a minute. And I got immediately what he said. This is a group of highly creative, highly intelligent, highly passionate individuals. Everyone in their own way is a perfectionist. Everyone is going to give 110%. There's no one in the group that just gives 100. And everyone loves this project, loves it. I mean, there's nothing funnier than sitting there and Crispin Glover is going, well, I don't like many things I work on, because he's so honest. I love it. And he goes, yeah, I don't really like many. And a lot of times people think the things I like are weird, but I really like this. When are we getting started again?
Wow.
And
I love that.
But that's the feeling across the board. Everyone gets so excited. Everyone, people say, oh, is press hard and is it weird and blah, blah, blah. And we're going, you get to talk about something you actually really enjoy. Ricky, Emily, and I think were the first binge watchers of this show because we were only supposed to see a couple of episodes at the production center. And we're like, no. What's the next episode? And can we see the next episode? And we truly have a wonderful time together. Everyone really cares about each other, really cares about the project, and it comes from the top down. Neil is just wonderful, incredible, so lovely and giving. And then you have Brian Fuller and Michael Green, who, like you said, they're really highly creative types. And they've found a way to make what can be some long hours and they make it all fun and they make it all enjoyable and they make and they also hold to incredibly high standards. They will go back and reshoot as many times as needed.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they do not. I think Brian said to me once that he said, look, I'm way more afraid of making anything mediocre than of anything else. So they will not stop until it feels right. And it's because everyone also feels a real sense of responsibility to the fans and to the viewers and to the material. And so it will be done until it is right. And on top of that, we got incredibly lucky in Fremantle and Starz because they felt the same way. They said, yes, keep on going until it's done right. And you probably know that doesn't always happen with networks.
Mm-hmm.
But, like Michael says, whenever they would want to go into a topic, the answer back from the network was, yes, but only if you really go into it. How often do you get that?
That's incredibly rare. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it definitely shows that there's a lot of hard work put in behind the scenes when we're watching these episodes week to week. So I just even appreciate that more as a fan. So thank you for your hard work.
But it's everybody else that I'm talking about. Like hair, Corolla and Roselle, makeup, Colin Penman, costumes. Oh my goodness, costumes, Tutor at Larlab. I mean, and then we're not even talking set design yet, or cinematography, or lighting. I mean, every element, everybody that's working on this, they're given 110. There's been nothing less.
That's amazing. So I had saw you on Periscope, and you had done a video where you had some interest in playing the role of Storm.
Yes!
So talk to me about that. Did you read any of the X-Men books growing up? And if there was anything that you could add to the role of Storm that hasn't been done yet, what would it be?
Well, my moment when I really fell in love with the character of Storm was as I want to say I was about 12-year-old, and we had just moved to the States, and I would love watching Saturday morning cartoons. That was what I did. I would get up in the morning, I'd watch that. There was Gargoyles, there was
yes.
Yes, right? You know that whole list of those amazing cartoons that would get you up early on a Saturday, too.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much froze every time Storm came on screen. This beautiful black woman. And on top of it, I don't know if you remember, but in those cartoons, she also had the African dialect.
She sure did. You're talking about the 90s. You're talking about the X-Men animated series on Fox in the 90s.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, that was the best.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And when she would command the storms and the wind, and
yes.
Sorry. Geek out.
I listen to that voice when I'm reading X-Men books, or even her solo run that recently was done. I hear that voice when I'm reading. So that voice definitely resonates with me.
And it definitely resonates with me. And I definitely loved the idea of being able to play with that. Because it literally had me frozen whenever I saw her on that screen. And I looked up to her. Does that sound geeky to say? But I really looked up to her.
I did too. That's normal to me.
Same. No, yeah, same.
She's the reason why I got into comic books in the first place. So yeah.
Because she was powerful, right?
Yeah.
She was. And I guess in some ways she does influence this role a little bit. But it was that kind of power, that deep, still mountain-like power, that comes from deep roots. It was a thing of beauty.
Oh, wow. This is Kyndal again, but let me just say that voice, that impression you just did, girl, you did that. Like, I can see this. I am envisioning in my head.
So that answered my question. That's what she would add to the role of Storm is the accent, since it's
we
non-existent.
all know how that went.
You just said like half a sentence, and I'm already like, all right, so let's get this going.
Yetide for Storm. Okay. Hashtag campaign.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Hashtag campaign.
I love it.
So my next question for you is, even though Bilquis is a goddess, and goddesses mythically are not really ones to take advice from other people, but I wanted to know if you could give Bilquis any advice. What advice would you give her? And then also, what do you think we as women, especially we as Black women, can learn from her?
I think that's one and the same. It would be, remember the greatness within. That is one thing she reminds me of. I think that is something that we all can sometimes be reminded of. Not sometimes, all the time. We're queens. We are queens. And there's so much that can come from the outside. There's so many different voices. There's so many people that are afraid of, I think, the power that is sensed within, that work to silence our voices. All through that, I think we can benefit from being still and just remembering that greatness within.
Preach on it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm like, you're taking me to church, the Church of Bilquis.
I want to attend.
I love it, right? Tell me when service is.
Let me get my tithes together on that one.
Right. Just don't let it be 8:00, because I struggle with that. I can't.
It'll be a decent time in the afternoon.
A decent time in the afternoon for the Bilquis service. So let's say someone is going to throw a modern day party in Bilquis's honor. What do you think would be her signature drink? Like, what cocktail will we be serving? What is this party going to look like? But I really want to know what this cocktail is, because I'm asking for a friend,
Yeah, a friend.
Yeah, a friend for this Bilquis themed party.
We always ask for a friend, don't we?
Yes, of course.
It's funny. I was just about to say, when you were talking about taking to church and, going to worship with Bilquis, I think that's a Bilquis. Bilquis is a brunch. There's a brunch worship with lots and lots of frosé, which I we had. Yeah, frozen.
Yes, queen.
Anywhere they
I'm
can
down with that.
sparkling wine and prosecco and fruit. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
Okay. Taking note. Okay.
Yeah. Kyndal's invitation for that is going to go out in like 3 days, just so everybody knows.
Just in time for Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
There you go.
So you guys are really, I would say, like close, as Jamie said, everybody. I'm sure you guys are joking around and having fun. And we saw that when you guys were here at South by. But I'm just curious if maybe you don't mind telling on them a little bit, if you could do a little like, who's most likely. So don't spill too much tea, but I do want to know a little bit. Who is
just a little bit of tea.
Yes, a little bit. Who's going to be like the Instagrammer?
Sorry, Ricky.
Yeah, that was easy. I'm not mad at either.
Lovely, absolutely lovely, and and it's always fun because like he's taught me so much more about enjoying the Instagram, enjoying the whichever, like we have a great time together and share it. So yeah. Kyndal, he's the king.
Okay, well that's good to know. I'm not surprised by that at all, as we said, because we follow all you guys, and so we know a little bit on that one.
We see it all.
Girl,
we see.
Who's the biggest flirt?
Oh, see, flirt, because it's kind of hard to say because we're such a family. So I'm like, flirt.
Well, flirt with the fans then.
I mean, I think we're all super social creatures, and we just enjoy each other. So does that mean that's all of us?
I will take that as an affirmative, yes. Who's most like who they play off screen?
Huh. Gosh, we're talking about some really talented performers here. So I would say, actually, I'll do you one opposite. The least like their character is Brucey, because he's the sweetest, kindest, most lovely person. And then he plays this, this intense, crazy technical boy. So I guess first the answer a little bit, but yeah, Brucey's the least like his character.
I could see that because he is really awful
on the screen, right?
Yeah. Yes, I was really awful.
This person in life.
Yeah, I could see that. He was really nice at South by. All of you guys were so great, and
nice.
I loved having that moment with you guys there, because then later when I was like, y'all don't even know the show's about to light your hair on fire, it's about to be wig snatching. Say it. And my final question, if you could switch roles with anyone for a day, who would you play?
Ooh, there's so many fun ones. But I just, I've told everyone of my love. Well, it'd be hard because I wouldn't want to switch it. Well, no. If that meant that he played Bilquis for a day, Orlando. I would play Mr. Nancy and have Orlando Jones play Bilquis. Yes, Orlando. I said that.
My God.
Yeah. That would be so
you
funny.
You just made this
just for a day
question.
So that would be my answer.
Awesome. Well, on that note, listen, Yetide, I think you need to come back on the podcast and talk to us more. Because this was fantastic. We've learned so much about the show and about you, and we really appreciate your time. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you on the interwebs and give us your social media handles?
All right. Everyone can find me. It's actually pretty easy with me because they're all under my name. So on Twitter, I'm at Yetide Badaki. On Instagram, I'm at Yetide. So it makes it super simple.
Excellent. Yay. Thanks for geeking out with us. This was fun.
Thank you for having me.
Bunch of girlfriends getting together, having a chat.
I know. Girl chat.
Yeah.
Girl chat.
And you have to come back after the finale No spoilers, but yeah, girl, you did that. So we need to talk after that's over.
I hope. Did you guys get a chance to check out the Bilquis tee, the man eater T-shirt?
I saw it. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my own shirt, but it's the one that says "Believe" with the buffalo on it.
Yay! Oh, I love that one too. Yeah, no, I'm really loving that Represent made those shirts as well, because they're putting a portion of proceeds to both Planned Parenthood and the United Nations Refugee Agency.
Well, I need to get on it. Let me get on this.
Yes. And they have tank tops and sweatshirts. So yeah, get your man-eater tee. Fun times.
And thank you for plugging that. Yes, we're doing a giveaway on blackgirlnerds.com with those shirts. So check those out if you want. And thank you again for coming on the show. Yeah, we definitely want to talk to you more.
Oh, thank you all. Y'all are lovely.
Decepticomics are a traveling comedy group that was founded in February 2012. John Minus is one of the members of Decepticomics, and in this segment, he talks to us about the state of comedy. What's offensive? What's not offensive? Where are lines drawn when it comes to comedians today, as we're more socially conscious and aware of issues such as homophobia, transphobia, and things like rape jokes? Is that really appropriate now in 2017? This is our discussion and our next segment featuring John Minus of Decepticomics. Welcome to this segment of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. My name is Jamie. I am your host. Prepare to laugh, guys. Prepare to geek out. You're going to have fun on this segment. Decepticomics, you may have heard of them. We've interviewed them before on our previous podcast back when we were on Blog Talk Radio. And I'm very excited to have an encore of one of the members of Decepticomics. Mr. John Minus is here. John, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't sleep a lot and I'm on a lot of caffeine, so I'm all squirrely.
I know you're already like getting involved with the discussion, and I hadn't even finished introducing you yet. But thank you so much for being on the show. And we have here Valerie Complex, our co-host. Valerie, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me. I don't come on the podcast nearly enough, mainly because I kind of hate the sound of my own voice, but I'm getting better.
Stop
BGN
it.
has helped me get better.
You have a velvety, perfect radio voice. I have the voice of somebody who's very old but hasn't hit puberty yet.
Man, I see. Hearing that, I could have made so much money in the 90s as Girl 6 or something like that. Long haul.
That movie was the joint. I loved Girl 6. 6 is for sex.
I could have made money as Girl 6, man. That's a compliment.
I actually...
You sound like you could have been in SWV.
What's that?
You sound like you could have been in SWV.
I
guess
why XW? My sister went to school with them, actually. She went to school with all three of them in the Bronx. I got old photos of her and my sister they got the bangle earrings and everything, and they got the 8-ball jackets and everything, and it's like, oh, that's SWV. I'm like, oh wow, everybody's old. But thank you for having me, and it's really great meeting you, and I'm ready to get the show on the road. I want to know what you think about some things, so I can't wait till we get to the hot topics part.
Yeah. So I do want our listeners who hadn't yet had the opportunity to listen to our first podcast when we interviewed you guys to tell us a little bit about who Decepticomics are. And you guys are touring right now, I understand. So tell us where we can expect to see some of your shows.
Okay. So, yeah, Decepticomics are 5 stand-up comedians. It's Jerome Russell, Mike Brown, Gordon Baker Bone, and Dylan Stevenson, and myself. And we are on tour right now through the South, well, basically all up and down the East Coast. We're actually going to the Midwest as well. And we're just basically 5 guys who came together because, we're all black comics, but we're all very different. And we all don't fit any of the black comedian tropes. And when you come to see our show, you know, some people see, oh, like 5 black males, they're all going to talk about the same things, but we talk about all sorts of things. Like my my comedy, I talk about mental health issues, like my own and my family's. I talk about nerd stuff. My current favorite joke of mine is about how if a kid wants to be Batman, he probably doesn't mind seeing his parents killed. So that's something you should worry about. Yeah, so I talk about all sorts of nerd stuff, sex stuff, really, you know, raunchy stuff. Gordon talks about, like, he has his own style. He's kind of like a hurricane. He bounces around to a lot of like real life issues, and it's hard to describe Gordon except that he's wildly entertaining. Me and him are from New Jersey, and even being from the same state, we're still wildly different because he's a city mouse and I'm a country mouse. Well, I'm a suburban mouse, basically. Like a lot of blurs, you know, I grew up in the suburbs, so my whole take on what it's like being black and growing up around white people isn't something that's really addressed, I feel like, in comedy, because you have lots of black people who move to the suburbs, but I was born in the suburbs, raised by them, molded by them, you know? I didn't see the city until I was already a man.
Oh,
by
gosh,
then I didn't.
That Bane quote. I was
Yes. Yes. I was trying to see how long I could get into it before somebody realized I was doing it.
You forgot to make the voice. You forgot to do that.
The voice, it makes it too obvious.
Too obvious, yeah.
But the voice is what
I was born
it
in the
in.
suburbs, raised by them, molded by them. I did.
That's a good impression.
By then, it was blinding.
I was born in the hood. Oh man, that was really
Brown is
awful.
from Harlem. Mike Brown's from Harlem, so he talks about, you know, that whole New York style, that Harlem style, and, you know, and how the city's changing, and, you know, gentrification, and how that he has a lot of political humor, but he's also silly too. So he's his own thing. Then there's Dylan Stevenson. He was from Michigan, but he's lived in Harlem for years now as well. And he's got the most, like, to me, the most esoteric style, and the one I like the most is he talks about a lot of nerdy stuff as well, really nerdy stuff. He has a whole set about how Batman is probably really good at giving oral sex to men.
Interesting.
It makes sense when he explains it. You have to come see it. But it really makes total sense. Trust me. And he's a gifted storyteller. If you follow him on Twitter, the Dylan1, you already know he's got thousands and thousands of followers. He's actually Joe Biden's favorite tweeter.
Really?
I don't know if you saw that article about Joe Biden reading his Joe and Obama bro tweets.
No, wow. I had not heard about that. Yeah, that's amazing.
It was in Time magazine, actually. And it said that his daughter shows him the tweets about him and Obama, and they used one of Dill's tweets. So he actually is Joe Biden's favorite tweeter.
That's what's up. I'm telling you, these celebrities, they check our tweets. They read our feed, they like it, and that's awesome that he got recognized by Joe Biden. And I would be remiss if I did not mention, you know, you had also talked about the kind of comedy that you do, and that you talk about mental health issues. And you were on our mental health podcast, the first one we did. We did 2. And I just want to say that podcast was one of our most downloaded episodes that we've ever done. And Shonda Rhimes retweeted that episode when I had put it out on Twitter. Another person who reads someone's tweets, by the way.
Hi, Shonda. How you doing?
I'm one of her favorite people to follow on Twitter. But yeah, I think that that's amazing that, you know, you're so versatile that you can talk about some really, you know, serious issues like mental illness, but then also use the work that you do in comedy as a way to kind of balance that out and show a little levity to those kind of situations. So can you give us some examples of what type of jokes that you tell that's in that sphere of mental health and mental illness?
You know, it's funny that you say that because I was doing a show in Boston at a sci-fi bookstore called Rickard and Beagle, which if you're in the Boston suburbs, you should definitely go to. It's amazing. That's not even like just a plug. Like, I really enjoyed that place. They have Cthulhu candles that smell like the end of the world. But yeah, like somebody had come up to me after that show and said, "Oh, I'd seen you before, and you did one type of thing, but I didn't know you had such a wide range of comedy." And I was like, "Yeah, well, you know, mess with me." But yeah, I have mental illness. I'm bipolar, and it runs in my family as well. Like, my mother had major depression. So I talk about that, and I feel like that's something, especially as black men, because black women will talk about, you know, in general, they've always been better, and that's women in general, will talk about mental health issues and seek treatment. You very, very rarely hear black men talk about themselves that deeply. Mm-hmm. And me, I'm my favorite subject, so I love talking about me. So I talked about how I've been hospitalized, how my mother was hospitalized, things like that. And I'm trying to write more material about how it is to take psych meds. And it's not like you will find white people like Fritz Gethard has a whole hour about his struggles with his own mental illness and things like that. And it's amazing and it's powerful and it's relatable. And I don't know why we don't have that for us. So it's not something I set out to do, but it's something that I noticed we need. I'm not trying to say I'm the hero we need, but I'm kind of the hero we need.
You are.
And
I know you're trying to be funny right now, but you really are. Like, that's important work that you're doing.
It's weird because sometimes in my day job, because I work in mental health too, so that's the other thing I say. I'm not only the president, I'm a client. So I try and educate people from both sides about like what you need to do, because I get mad at people. I get really mad at people when they say, "Oh, I stopped taking my meds," because I know personally how bad it is to take how bad it is to stop taking my meds, and I know professionally how bad it is to stop taking to just stop taking meds, and I understand why, because with I mean, not to get too deep into this, but we already started with people who are, especially with people who are bipolar, being manic is freaking great. It feels really good. And taking your meds to make you even, it doesn't feel good. It does make you not feel as good. So I understand it. But for those people, I say, look at the people around you. Are they enjoying your manic periods as much as you are? That's not necessarily funny, but so I'm trying to figure out how to make it funny.
But I mean, I just want.
I was saying it is still comedy.
Yeah.
So it still has to be funny. And like I said, I'm not setting out to change the world, but there's things that I've been through that I know other people have been through, and it needs to be brought up. We need to. What's this whole show about? Black nerds. Jamie, remember, and you still get it. Remember how when I first started talking to you, how like we were like, oh my God, there's so many of us.
Yeah.
And we've been around long enough. Yeah. And we've been around long enough to remember when there wasn't so many of us and we were out there on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I tell these jokes, like one of my favorites now is about Doctor Who having a black reincarnation. Because I feel like that's so much me. It's so nerdy and it's so black.
Black
and like
and nerdy.
it was, yeah. If there was flirty, yeah. If there was any comedian for this generation, it's me. So
I think the fresh humor is something that is definitely needed, especially, you know, with the recycling of the jokes and stuff that's sort of outdated. Dave Chappelle. And
yes. Oh my God, what a train wreck that was.
Let's talk about that because I want to get the layman's point of view on that. his two specials. What are your guys' summations?
I feel like that whole bit that he did felt like something that could have come out in 1995. His jokes were so dated. You know what I'm saying? Like, even like using homophobic slurs like, you know, fag. Like, who says that now in 2017? Like, that's not something that's cool to say. So, like, I didn't understand why he thought that those things were still funny now. And then also the transphobic jokes. Like, people are now, of course, we're more socially conscious. We're more mature when it comes to intersectionality. But I think nowadays those kind of jokes really aren't that funny. Because people are more accepting of people that are from different backgrounds and different, you know, nationalities and genders and sexuality. So, yeah, it just wasn't that good.
I didn't even laugh like a little bit. Like, I think we were watching it and something else was going on, and then we just turned it off because it was like not funny. Like, overall not funny. Aside from, you know, the sort of tasteless jokes, it just didn't have much to offer. And, you know,
You didn't
like
like
Jamie
same
said,
hero, different boots?
I don't even remember it because I was so into something else that was happening. And it was like, you know, I remember Dave Chappelle has the ability to sort of command a whole room. But I think I was expecting more of his socio-political humor, especially in this day and age. And he came with something else, and it was just, I don't know. I'm not sure what his thinking process was behind it, but it wasn't funny to me. But,
Now,
you know, shout out to the people who enjoyed it. Because, I mean,
Yeah, there was a lot of Ashy Bros that loved it. So, yeah, shout out to them.
Well, here's what I have to say to that. If a performance isn't what you wanted it to be, does that make it a bad performance?
I mean,
performing what he did.
Like you said, you wanted it to be a different thing than what he did. Now is
I said I was expecting something different.
But I mean, all entertainment, all comedy is subjective anyway. So, yeah, to us it is going to be bad. To him, it may not be a bad performance. To somebody else, it's probably the greatest performance he's ever had. But that's what the entertainment industry is all about. It's all about subjectivity, right?
And I thought it was cool. If you liked it, I mean, I'm not going to bash you for it. It's not what you find funny is sort of what you find funny in this instance. You know, I just don't know if David Chappelle appeals to a mass audience anymore. I mean, I really don't know. Maybe another show.
I feel like we've outgrown Dave Chappelle. I'm sorry to say. Like, I love Dave Chappelle, and I think he's still funny in a lot of aspects, but that last comedy concert, like I said, it felt like something from the 90s. It just felt so outdated and old-fashioned.
Now, for you two, you're in a world of like socially aware. You know, we're on Twitter. We're definitely in a more socially conscious bubble.
Right.
There are lots of people who have no idea, who have never heard what social justice, who have never heard what cis means, who have
that's so true.
Lots, and like, so this whole world we're in with being young activists is not representative of the vast majority of people. Like, when I go to work and I talk to my coworkers, they barely know anything about what's going on. Like, they don't know about stuff that the rest of us are sweating our hair out about. Most people are focused on their family, their friends, and keeping their job. So they're not at all concerned or worried about the things that you two or I would keep us from finding something funny. So it's not that, like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but as to saying that the world has passed him by, I really have to say I don't think that's true, because the world is still in his arena. They would have paid him that much money if they didn't think they weren't going to take it back.
And let me take that back, because I didn't mean to say like we've outgrown him and, you know, that's the end of Dave Chappelle. I just felt like that particular comedy show concert felt dated to me, between the homophobic slurs, the transphobic slurs, the rape jokes. I mean, are we still doing rape jokes in 2017? I don't know. I just felt like that comedy would have killed a decade ago compared to now. And you're right. Like, people today, even my coworkers and people that I meet outside of the four corners of the internet, are completely unaware of a lot of the social justice issues that we talk about on Twitter every day. But still, like, I don't think that show resonated well with a lot of people. And I saw, even people that I talked to, friends and stuff that saw the comedy concert, they didn't think it was the funniest of his work. Like, Killing Me Softly is still, to me, I think his best work yet. But again, it's all relative, right?
The other thing that I have, the other talking point about that is, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day, is that why are we at a point where comedians have to be the biggest social commentary? Like, we're at a point where there's no media. Like, we used to go to the media to tell us how to feel or to point out, the facts and how, and the important commentary. We don't have that anymore. We don't have the Walter Cronkite's anymore. We don't have those stately newsmen, like those guys who came up chasing leads and like pounding the pavement. We don't have people whose voice who have any gravitas that our parents and our grandparents had. Mm-hmm. We don't have them. So where are we looking for? We're putting all this pressure on comedians to be those voices. And to be honest, as a comedian, we're trying to be funny. We're not trying to save the world. If that happens, then fine. But like, Dave Chappelle isn't out there and there are people who do that. There's your John Olivers, there's your Jon Stewarts, but right. Dave Chappelle isn't out there trying to, be that. He's a really silly guy, and he had some silly thoughts about these things, and he wrote them down because he thought they were funny. That's his point. Like he had the joke about there were two guys who were producers and one was gay. He panicked and he didn't know, and he asked him for a pitch. So he came up with this really silly idea about a superhero who was never recognized because he always changed his outfit because gay men never wear the same thing twice. That is silly. It's an incredibly silly idea, but it was, I gotta admit, I thought it was funny. And I don't think it was hateful towards gay men, but I'm not a gay man, And to say that like nobody I knew thought it was funny is precisely that's a cognitive bias, because it's like if everybody I know thinks it's X, then it has to be X.
Valerie, what are your thoughts on this?
I think I guess I should have explained better. I'm not seeing his comedy from a standpoint like, his socio-political commentary is great, but if it ain't funny, it ain't funny. Yeah. Like it doesn't really have anything to do with, for me, okay, so his transphobic and homophobic slurs are tasteless, sure, but I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm hypocritical, and if something is funny, then I may laugh, but I'm not gonna tell nobody. But it's just in this case, it was tasteless and it wasn't funny.
And it wasn't fun. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what made it stand out for me, because nobody's perfect. And we can't all, I know a lot of us like to, we say we're activists and everything, and we try to stick by our word. But sometimes this life is too heavy, and sometimes I may hear something that's pretty tasteless. Usually, I think, rape jokes are kind of like off limits. I don't even want to hear it. I don't care how funny it is. But some things, it may catch a giggle out of me, and I'll be like, damn, I just fucked up, and I have to go whip my back and atone for my sins or something like that. But in this case with David, it wasn't it wasn't even funny. It didn't really elicit much of a response except for blinks and stares. I mean, I don't expect somebody like Daniel Tosh to use his comedy to save the world. But he's just, to me, he's just an unfunny person. It doesn't really have anything to do with social justice or anything like that. Some people are just not funny, no matter what they do. And I just think in this case, David Chappelle is funny. He's really got great comedic timing. I think he's pretty genius. It's just this comedy special was among some of his worst work for many reasons aside from social justice. The jokes weren't funny. They didn't feel relevant. And I don't even mean like relevant as in the issues that are going on today. I mean, like his crack jokes are almost evergreen because crack has been around forever and people are probably going to smoke crack until the bomb drops. But so stuff like that is like, okay, understandable, laugh about it, whatever. But I don't know. This just wasn't, it didn't tickle my fancy. Sorry.
No. And on that level, if you just come up and say they weren't good jokes, they weren't funny, I've no argument with that. No argument because it's supposed to be funny. If you just say like I didn't think it was funny, then I can't argue with that. If you say something like it wasn't socially relevant, I can discuss with you about that. But if you're just like they weren't funny jokes to me, I'm like yeah, all right, then you're right. You're right because that's what comedy is supposed to. If you don't think they were funny, like to be honest, I thought he looked a little rusty. I thought he looked a little rusty.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like he been out the game too long.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. It feels like he's stuck in another decade. Like he hasn't caught up with the rest of modern day comedians.
Mm-hmm.
True. And I think that's why people took to Kevin Hart. I'm sorry. I think that's why people took to Kevin Hart because he is fresh, he is current, and he's talking about things that people find funny now.
Yeah, and things that people relate to. And he doesn't have to relegate to using homophobic slurs or rape jokes to get a laugh. He'll talk about he does like a lot of self-deprecating humor, which to me personally, I think is the best kind of humor. So he'll talk about his height and, how short he is. And he talks about his wife and his kids. And he does it in a way that's funny because it's relatable. And that, to me, is more humorous.
And I think that's always been Kevin Hart's shtick.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been... harsh topics has always been David Chappelle's thing. I just don't think I don't know. It's really hard to explain. I just don't think he did it in a way.
He just missed the mark on this last one. Yeah. Hopefully he'll make a good comeback. And because I like I said, I like Dave Chappelle. It's just, it wasn't hitting it for me on this last comedy concert.
The other thing I wanted to say was like, don't be ashamed of laughing at something. Like you mentioned how like these are really messed up times. Like we need, and that's kind of the danger of being too woke, quote unquote, is that you can't enjoy anything anymore when this is the time when you need to enjoy things the most.
I don't think so. I think you can still find things that are funny. Like I said, I just feel like right now, I think period, not even just right now, but rape jokes are not cool. They're just not cool. And they're not funny. They're just not funny. Homophobic jokes, they're just not funny. Transphobic jokes, they're not funny to me. Like, it's not even about socially being conscious. It's just about, insulting a group of people. That's how I see it. And there's so much other material out there to joke about. Why do you always have to go to these kinds of things?
Well, all right. So let me ask you, because I've gotten in trouble for this before. I have it's not a rape joke. It's more of a rape anecdote. But it's about this woman I was with who used to have rape fantasies, and I just talk about that, like in the context of her fantasies and how it related to me. And it was an interracial thing, and it comes out. It isn't. It's about the situation. So I feel like we can't avoid, because it's a thing in the world, and can't avoid talking about anything all the time. But the way I equate things like race, rape, like any of those really hot button issues, it's like being on a bomb squad. Like, if you're really good, you can defuse that bomb and get a big laugh. The problem is 90% of the people who try those jokes aren't really good, and it ends up blowing up in their faces. So it's the sort of thing where, like, you shouldn't attempt it until you are really, really good, or else it's gonna blow up in your face. Mm-hmm. So, like, I wouldn't say that it's never funny, but it's rarely funny. Because
I haven't come across a rape joke yet that I found funny. I don't know. And maybe it goes again to that subjectivity conversation. What's funny to me or what's not funny to me may be funny to you and vice versa. But for me personally, I don't see anything funny about that. So.
Yeah, no. And that's true. Like, it might not ever be funny to you, but that doesn't mean it can't ever be funny. It will never be funny to you.
Yeah.
That's just odd. I don't know.
It's a thing that comedians struggle with, because it's not just about that.
I just feel like there's so many things for comedians to talk about. Why do you have to talk about traumatic issues that could trigger someone that's been through sexual assault or dealt with sexual violence at the expense of that person's trauma? That's almost like me making fun of somebody with a disability and, making a joke about it, and they're there in the audience and they feel like, shit for me talking about them that way. Like, I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much conversations to have outside of people with disabilities, people that are rape victims, marginalized LGBTQ people. Like, you can't talk about your kids, you can't talk about work, you can't talk about Donald Trump. Like, there's a lot of material to go around.
Well, here's my answer to that. There is the first thing I say is that there are people in those groups who like to be joked about. Mm-hmm. You can't paint anybody with a broad brush. There are rape survivors who don't mind rape jokes because it helps them deal. There's a lot of people who don't, and especially people with disabilities. Like, I've heard comedians talk about it, and there's even a couple of comedians who have disabilities. They joke about their disabilities all the time.
That's
and they say
true.
they like hearing jokes about them.
That's true.
Because when nobody talks about them, it makes them feel coddled and babied.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times these people who we call special, like, saying, oh no, don't joke about them, is kind of infantilizing. The thing they most want to be is treated like anybody else.
Right.
So, like, people, like blind people, like all those, they love being roasted because they feel included. And, like, if you're always thinking about, oh, this might hurt somebody's feelings, you will never be funny. It's impossible. You won't be funny in any way if you're always thinking about who this might offend. There would be no humor.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's just a thing.
I think
sometimes you want to offend people. I want to there are times, like, a lot of my race jokes are meant to offend people, especially, like, racist nerds.
Yeah, but that's different.
I just think it's a very slippery slope, and
yeah,
I don't know. I guess I just don't feel comfortable co-signing to that aspect. Well, I'm pretty sure there are some people who are like, let's make a joke out of it, or let's have some fun. But I haven't met anyone like that, and I'm a rape survivor, and I don't think I've ever said, "Oh, well, let's have some fun at my expense." I don't know. It's just odd. I mean, it's not personally with you. It's just I that kind of thinking is strange to me, and maybe I'm missing something, or maybe I need to examine that a bit more, talk with some other people who maybe find solace in that type of humor, based on their trauma. But it's just, I don't know. It's just weird.
Something you have to do. You don't have to be okay with it. It's fine. But some people are. And what my point is that you have to be okay with other people being okay with it. You don't have to be okay with it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but I don't think we're judging people that are okay with those kinds of jokes. We're just saying that for us, it's not funny. Like, I don't see myself going out and paying for a Dave Chappelle ticket if all he's going to talk about is rape jokes and homophobic jokes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. That's your, and you know what? That's even better. Because a lot of times when you see these like comedians have these meltdowns and have to destroy audience members, it's because a lot of people just go to see comedy, like no frills, black letters on white. They have no idea what the comedian is going to do. And I think that happened to Margaret Cho at the Stress Factory in New Jersey. Like, I think people just like, oh, I've heard her name. She's Asian. And then they just go and they have no idea what she's about. So I would much rather you say, I don't like Dave Chappelle's jokes, I'm not going to go, than just show up blind and then get mad. It's like, you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. Like, I think all comedians would prefer that whoever comes to see them has some idea what they're about. Yeah. Like, when I go up, I don't think a lot of people expect me to talk about as much black stuff as I talk about. But I do, and then they don't expect me to have a 4 or 5 minute joke about Harry Potter, but I do, which is also another one of my favorites. It's about coming out of the closet as a Ravenclaw.
Are you saying it's about people knowing what they're getting into? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
That comedians are getting pissed off because people are showing up to their shows because they're people are like, for example, I guess the one time where Daniel Tosh and this woman were going at it because he made a rape joke and she went back at him and they were having this back and forth or whatever, and she ended up leaving or getting kicked out or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's very possible she didn't know what to expect and never heard of Daniel Tosh. And she may have heard from her friends, oh, he's funny, he's this, he's that. But it's also possible that she may have knew who he was and liked this comedy and then went and heard something unexpected. So I guess you just never know. But I see what you mean.
Daniel Tosh does not hide his comedy. It's no secret. It's very offensive. It is extremely offensive. So if you go to see somebody, you gotta, I think it's like we all say, a comedy show, unless you're going to see a Seinfeld or like the aforementioned Sebastian Maniscalco, there's completely safe comics who are also funny. That is not all comics. So it is kind of a little buyer beware, If you're going to a comedy show, sight unseen, you have to know that something's probably going to offend you. And you have to know if that's going to make you mad or not. And you can always leave. Like, trying to bring the whole show down, I've never seen a heckler win over a crowd. I can tell you that much. I've never seen a heckler, like the crowd be like, yeah, you're right. I was enjoying this show until right now, but that random person is right. Now, it's hard because I don't want to sound like I'm bullying you, but like as a comedian, it's a weird area, Yeah. I had this very experience the other night where like a black woman was seeming to be offended by my jokes, and I don't think my jokes are denigrating to black people. And I asked this other table who were enjoying them, I'm like, did it seem like I was, because I get, sometimes I don't know how I come across, especially to black people, because, it's from the cities. Because I'm suburban, sometimes urban people might think I'm like a sellout, whatever. The whole thing. You know how it is. We've had this discussion. Mm-hmm. But these other people, they were like, you have to understand that there's going to be black people who don't get you at all and find you offensive. So now I'm trying to figure out, do I need to change my comedy to not be offensive to them, or am I doing my comedy right and it should offend them? There's so much that goes into this.
Right.
there's so much that goes, and sometimes your point is to make people laugh at the offensive thing because it's something they don't want to acknowledge. Like, I try and get white people to acknowledge their secret biases in relation to me. So when I talk about how, I have this voice, but it doesn't sound this voice is going to come out of this body, that's not something I have to deal with. I mean, well, it used to be, but like you deal with that with black people, but you way more deal with that with white people. Or at least everybody, something like, oh, you sound that whole you sound white thing. If I talk about my I sound white thing, that's not because I'm upset with it. I'm upset with people who are saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So when they start to realize, oh, I'm talking about you in the audience, they're going to get uncomfortable. They're going to get offended. But that's my point. I want them to think about what they say before they say it.
But I think talking about topics of racism, which black comedians do a lot of the times, I think that that's something that's not really an issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that that's offensive towards either black people or, people of other different races, just talking about race.
Yeah. Oh, you would be mistaken.
Well, at least, I mean, I guess, and it goes back to what Valerie said earlier, like, as long as it's funny, like, you can execute it. Because, I mean, think about, like, the great comedians. The great black comedians of our past have always talked about race. I mean, Richard Pryor, Bill Cosby, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock. Like, they've always talked about race in their routine. And it never was something that was offensive or jarring to us. It was just really funny. So,
all right, here I have an example. Not to cut you off, but I have to say this about Richard Pryor talked about a lot of gay stuff. And if you're black, you can't talk about gay stuff in anything but a really negative way.
So did Eddie Murphy. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, and they got away with it for a while because they were the funniest people on the planet.
And the times back then, yeah.
Yeah. It's like LeBron can do things because he's LeBron, But if you're just Joe Schmo, comedian trying to work your way up, it's hard for me to do gay stuff. It's hard for a lot of black comics coming up to do gay stuff to black audiences because unless you're making fun of them. Mm-hmm. Like if you're doing anything less in a pejorative manner, a lot of black audiences will tune out. A lot of black audiences are very conservative about that stuff. Like neocon conservative, Can't make fun of religion. Don't make fun of religion. Don't say anything nice about gay people. So they'll get offended, but it's not something. It's like just because somebody gets offended doesn't mean the joke's wrong.
I'm not really sure how to respond.
Uncomfortable silence.
No, I don't disagree with you. There's a I guess quote unquote offensive things when it comes to race that I find funny. Like, I mean, look at Dave Chappelle's show. Like that whole show was about race, and a lot of those sketches were really funny. But I mean, when it's something that's really traumatic and triggering, and I think something that can be potentially life-threatening. I mean, racism can be life-threatening as well, but, transphobia is what I'm speaking of, and sexual violence. That, I don't know. I just don't see the humor in those things. Anyways, we're beating a dead horse going back about this.
I'm enjoying this conversation. I think you guys are making good points, and it's opening my eyes to some stuff. Like, for instance, like I know, I might be new to some of your eyes, but my mother committed suicide. I love suicide jokes because it helps ease that pain. Because it's like you can't see anything funny about it, and it's just a constant black hole. So when I hear people make jokes, I'm like, there's a little. Maybe if I can find humor in this, it just doesn't hurt as much. Because otherwise it's just always negative. But if you can think of some joke that made you laugh in that darkness, then that eases it for me. Now I know a lot of people. Some people are that is very triggering, but for me it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So that's my personal example of how a negative experience can be made a little
leveraged
not
into
made
something
positive.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I try so hard to make jokes about that because it's the only way I'm going to get over it. Like, honestly, like it's been almost 14 years. I haven't dealt with it at all until recently. Writing jokes about it, finding whatever humor in this situation is the only way I've managed to start to process my mother's death. So comedy isn't that important, but it kind of is. It's weird.
Comedy is very important. I mean, we definitely need it in this world, and I really appreciate the work that you do, John. You guys are so much fun to watch your tweets on Twitter, and I've seen some of your stand-up stuff on YouTube, and you guys do some really great work. Can you let our listeners know, again, like where we can find you on the interwebs and what your next tour date is if we are in your town?
Okay, I didn't get to mention the last member because there's 5 of us. Jerome Russell, he's from Georgia. He's from Americus, Georgia. And one of his jokes is that because he has a very strong Southern accent. He's like, I'm from the South, I'm from Georgia, and that's why I have this accent. I'm not, disabled or developmentally delayed. And people laugh at that because, he's saying that, this accent's so strong that some people think that I have a disability, but that's just how I sound. Southern is my disability. So
that's funny.
Yeah. Like I said, it's all how you do it.
It's all how you do it. Yeah.
He's ridiculously funny. But yeah, we're going to be in Orlando on the 19th, and then the 20th in Nashville, 21st in Louisville. The 22nd is our big show in Atlanta, at the Relapse Theater. You really want to come out to that one. That's going to be quite the big deal. The 24th, we're going to be in Cincinnati, the 25th, Chicago, 26th, St. Louis, and the 27th in Highland. You can find all our tour dates on Decepticomics.com/tour. And once again, we're John Minus at Don Coyote, Dylan Stevenson at the Dill One, the number one, Mike Brown at Yo Mike Brown, Jerome Russell is just Jerome Russell, and Gordon Baker Bone at Baker Bone. Follow us, tweet us. We're really funny guys, and we're gonna try to go to FanCon.
Yeah. Okay.
Wouldn't that be a great panel?
That would be an amazing panel, and I would love for you guys to come to FanCon and make that happen. So let's take the word try out. Let's just say you're coming.
Oh. Yeah, all right. We're coming to FanCon.
There you go. Make the formal announcement.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah. You heard it here first.
So yeah, all right. Thanks for letting me for having this time. This was a really good conversation.
Yeah, it was. We got a little deep on this one.
It's I think it's what I think about all the time.
Yeah.
It's like thinking about what your jokes are doing and what effect you want them to have. It's pretty deep. A lot goes into this. And sometimes it may not seem like it, but even the silliest joke probably was rewritten 40 times.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, John. This was great.
Yeah.
It was excellent meeting you, John.
Huh?
I said it was excellent meeting you.
Oh, thank you. I hope to see you in person. One last thing, non sequitur. You should definitely start watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again.
I refuse.
I was gonna say no.
Yeah, it's a no for me, dog. It's a no.
That's like non-negotiable.
There's other shows right now that are incredibly good that I rather focus my time and attention to than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm sorry. You know what? I feel bad. I am like so behind on all the comic book shows. The Flash, Arrow. I haven't even seen Legion yet.
Yeah, and everybody says Legion's really good.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
It get some issues in the next few days. But
I think The
but
Walking
yeah,
Dead is the only comic book show that I'm actually watching right now still.
and that's the worst.
I was going to say, people are barely hanging on there.
I have a love-hate
That's what I'm hearing.
relationship. It's a love-hate thing with me and Walking Dead.
I checked that out 3 seasons ago. Haven't regretted it. Haven't regretted it once.
I'm not even going to fight with you and say it's worth watching at this point. I mean, it's good, but it's a back and forth thing with me, and it's so hard to articulate it.
It's a chore. I totally get it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys wanted to go early, so you get off, and I'm taking up all your time.
Don't worry about it.
You're good. Thank you, John. This was great. And we look forward to hearing more from you.
Yeah. No, I always have such a good time on you guys' show. All right. Well, have a good night.
Okay.
Make sure you follow up on FanCon.
Yeah, no, I totally will. I'm going to put together a packet and everything.
Awesome.
Totally will. All right. Thanks a lot.
Have a good night, John.
Thanks, Jamie.
The Black Girl Nerds podcast is produced by Jamie Broadnax. Various episodes are edited by Jamie Broadnax, M.R. Daniel, and John Bauer. The opening theme song to our show is written and performed by Samus. Various instrumentals are performed by Samus, Sky Blue, and Shubzilla. You can find episodes of the Black Girl Nerds podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spreaker, and Spotify.
That was a HeadGum podcast.